any recent year before 2022. Hey, should I sell my home? Yes, you should. Prices are great right now. Unbelievable. Should I buy a home? Yes, prices are going up. Interest rates are low. Yes. 2022. Should I sell my home? Oh, I don't know. Prices are changing. I'm not sure. Should I buy a home? Oh, I don't know. The interest rates are going up like crazy. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, everyone. I'm Brian Marino, the Real Realtor, selling homes in Central Suffolk County since 1990. And today I want to talk about, should you buy or sell in the current real estate market? Well, the first easy answer is everyone's motivation is going to be different. The higher the motivation, you're not going to care what's going on in the market. If you have to sell for financial reasons or personal reasons, you have to sell. It's not going to matter to you. Same thing if you have to buy. If you're a young couple, you just bought a home, or maybe you've been transferred, you have to buy a home. You don't care the current market conditions. That's not who I'm directing this message to. I'm directing this message to those people who care about the price and are a little bit on the fence about whether they should sell or buy. Hopefully, a lot of the situation I'm going to mention will clear up any confusion you might have, and hopefully lead you to a path to go one way or another. Okay, there are really 7 situations, 7 different scenarios that a seller is going to have that'll determine whether they're going to sell or not. The first seller is the relocation seller who's moving out of state. They're going to sell first, then they're going to buy. That person right now, they're going to sell their house. As long as they know they have somewhere to go, you have to know your market and the place you're going to go. If it's really, really hot still, that could cause a problem for you. I'm going to talk about a solution to that in the next group of people that I'm going to talk about. But if you've been saying, I want to get out of New York for whatever reason, or I want to move upstate, or whatever the situation is, still a very good time to sell. Definitely still a good time to sell. The next situation, actually the next 2 situations I'm going to talk about, is the trade up and the trade down buyer. The trade up buyer is someone who's outgrowing their home, wants a bigger, most likely more expensive home. The trade down buyer is someone who has the bigger house and now, like a retiree maybe, is thinking about something smaller, almost like an empty nester. A few things to consider with these 2 groups, especially with the trade up buyer. When you go and buy, you're probably going to have a higher interest rate now than what you bought for. That might play into your decision because people live in the payment, not so much how much the home costs, but how much the monthly payment is. Speak to your local mortgage broker or bank and let them help you with that to determine your financial situation. The next situation regarding a trade up or a trade down is the inventory problem. There still is, at least in this area of Suffolk County, not a lot of homes still for sale. It's better than it was, but it still ain't where it was a few years ago. So, solution I have, and this also works with the first instance I mentioned, the relocation buyer. Perhaps you can buy first and then sell. That'll relieve, I should say, a heck of a lot of stress for you. Because when somebody sells, now they have to buy. Chances are, maybe you can negotiate a little longer of a time period with the right buyer, but they're going to want to close 2 to 3 months probably from when you have a meeting of the minds. That could cause a lot of stress for some people because you're worried you're going to be homeless or there'll be financial ramifications if you don't proceed with the purchase. On quite a few occasions over the past few years, people who were worried about this or that I thought it was right for, I suggested, well, buy first, then you have a place, and then since your home will probably sell quickly, then put your home on the market, and every time we've tied the 2 closings together without a problem. Now, a little caveat with that is you have to be able to qualify for the purchase holding as if you're going to keep your home. So that's going to affect you a little bit. You may have to pull some money out of a retirement account or some other account, but to relieve the stress, it's good for a lot of people if you're able to do it. A lot of people who, the first group I mentioned, the relocation people, they tend to do that as well. Tend to buy first, lock that up, and then go and sell their house so that they just don't have the stress. And I can fully appreciate and understand that. Now, the fourth situation. You live here in New York. You already have a home in a second city, wherever that may be. You've been going back and forth, and you've been saying for years, when the time is right, I'm going to sell this home up here, and we're going to spend all our time down south. If that's the case, emphatic yes is the answer about selling. Yes, 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 and yes. And in case I didn't say it, yes, it's the right time to sell. You probably won't get a better price. The market is changing. We're probably at or near the top of the market, even if it remains somewhat flat, which is what I think will happen over the next year or so. I don't think you're in a better position. This will be the time that if you don't do it, you'll look back and say, geez, why didn't I sell a year ago when the timing was perfect? So definitely. Fifth situation is if you're an investor. And there's two different types of investors. You've been a buy and hold investor for a while. You've been renting a house and saying when the time is right, I'll sell it. Well, definitely the time is right. Another yes, 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 as far as selling it now. You'll get a top price for the house, and you won't have to worry about renting anymore if that's been a headache for you. If it hasn't been, and the property is turning a significantly positive cash flow, well, then maybe keep it forever. I can't make that decision for you, but that goes into it. But if you're a special situation where you're breaking even, God forbid, losing money every month, or maybe only making a few $100s a month, the aggravation just might not be worth it anymore. Now is definitely the time. If you're an investor who has bought flip houses, of course, you always look to sell right away. That pretty much goes without saying. Definitely sell now. Your option is you could rent it. Rental market is probably stronger than the sales market. But again, being a landlord is a different type of person. You have to have the stomach for that, especially when the tenant decides they either don't want to or they cannot pay. Lovely situation to have to deal with, but it does happen. So again, that's up to you. I don't mind you picking my brain. I've been an investor, and if you want to call and pick my brain, that's fine anytime. Next one, if you've inherited the house, or if it's your parents' house and you're wondering if they should sell it, maybe you're in charge of that for your parents or another relative, or like I said, maybe you inherited the house. Again, very similar to an investor situation. Definitely is the time is right to sell the house now rather than later. Simply because, again, prices could be changing, market could be changing, mortgages could be tougher. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So definitely, I don't know what your holding costs are, especially if you're not renting it. And again, that's another option. You could rent it. You could rent this property. The challenge, again, with that is all the things I mentioned before about renting, especially if you've never been a landlord. Being a first-time landlord is a rude awakening. I once heard an expression many, many years ago. There's only 2 times in life where you know somebody. The first is when you're married to that person. The second is when you rent to that person. And I can tell you from experience, that is definitely true. So anyway, the last situation is if you're a first-time home buyer. I say most likely yes to buying now. Will prices be lower next year? Possibly. That's a possibility. But will interest rates be higher? That's almost a definite possibility. So if you've been waiting to pull the trigger, you were fighting for homes in the pandemic, now you won't have that issue as much. I can't say you won't have it at all, but maybe instead of 10 offers, you'll only be one of 2 or 3. If you don't mind doing work to a house, you'll probably find one, and you might be the only offer right now. I mean, I wouldn't wait forever, but you probably would be the only offer. The only other alternative is if you don't buy or sell, or if you sell, you could go into a rental and then decide to wait it out for a year. Honestly, I'm about 50-50 on that right now. Any price gains you make because prices drop, I would think will be made up for, will be compensated for by the fact that interest rates will increase. So again, that's going to really pretty much be up to you. Unless you're a seller who has, who when they buy plans to have no mortgage, then maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to sell now and then wait a year or two and see where things fall then. Again, personal decision, but those are some of the things to think about. One of the things to think about regarding mortgages also, we're coming out of a market where mortgages, I'm not going to say they were easy to get, but I look into the future and I say, I think mortgages are going to be a little tougher to get next year simply because qualifications are going to be a little tougher. People live in the payment rather than the cost of the home. So the same house today with the same amount of money down because of higher interest rates is going to cost more money in the future. So that's definitely something to think about. And another little caveat with this, and I've seen these cycles in my real estate career over 30 years. I've seen like 3 or 4 of these cycles now. When prices are jumping up, mortgages, qualifications, they become a little lax. What's a big thing that happens with that is if you're buying or selling a home and it needs permits for a deck commonly, or maybe an in-ground pool, or maybe you put an extension on the house. Well, in a hot market where prices are going up, lenders tend to care less about that. But once the market starts to change, now lenders all of a sudden, they may decide that, you know what, unless all the permits are in place regarding a property, we're not going to give a mortgage on it. So I anticipate that changing a bit over the next year, becoming tougher. So again, something to think about. Overall, I would say you want to stay ahead of the market. And what I mean by ahead of the market, well, the prices as a seller, they're probably flat, maybe going down. All right, not too bad. But if all of a sudden something happens in the economy and it looks like usually a few months later after that prices are going to drop, stay ahead of that and sell today rather than tomorrow. If you're a buyer, same type of thing. If in reverse, that if things change in the economy and prices start to go down, well, maybe you can wait then, actually. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. However, the interest rates, they're almost definitely going up. They're hovering, just above or below 7% right now. And it's looking like more rate increases are coming. So I would definitely say, you know what? The trend is definitely in the next year that interest rates are going up. So in general, I would say ask yourself these 5 questions as to your own unique situation. Will there be more homes on the market today or tomorrow? The more homes that are on the market, the more prices tend to go down. The less homes that are on the market, the more prices tend to go up. Second point, will there be more or less people employed? That's an interesting one. Right now, in the fall of 2022, even though prices are going up, they still need workers out there. There aren't any big layoffs coming. Could that change? Well, that definitely could change. And basically, the more people that are employed, the more mortgages get paid. The less people that are employed, the less mortgages get paid, among other things, of course. But that plays into it. Again, we already talked about number 3, interest rates being higher or lower. We talked about that pretty extensively to think about. In general, number 4, about the economy as a whole. Are people spending? Are people not spending? Will it be better or will it be worse? Something to think about. And the last point, and probably the most important point for everybody watching this message right now, will your desire to move be greater or less in the next 6 months to a year? If you think it's going to be greater, well, then maybe you should do it sooner rather than later. If you think it's going to be less of the same, then maybe there's not a huge, desire, no pending reason to put the house up on the market or buy a home, and that's understandable. Best example I can give about desire to move is if you're a family of 3, 4, and you're planning on expanding your family for whatever reason, not just with a new baby, maybe a relative's coming in. All right, well, you know what? Your desire to move is going to be greater in the next 6 months to a year or so. So definitely think about that. Thank you everyone for watching this. And on the next video, I want you to look for, should you use a realtor to sell a home or even buy a home? Look for that next. Bye.